Good evening, folks. This is The Weird Part, and I am your host, Vincent Treewell. My special guest tonight is Lois Reetz, a animal communicator. Welcome, Lois.
Hi, thank you. Nice to be here.
Yes. We've talked briefly before this and before we started recording. I'll just jump right in. You are an animal communicator. What does that mean? What does that involve?
Okay. Basically, it is a telepathic connection between living and even deceased animals. You look at a picture to make a connection, and that would be called a psychic connection because you're using a picture. Although I am a psychic medium and have been doing mediumship probably for 30 years.
I see.
Parties and parties, etc., stuff like that. But how I ended up getting into animal communication is I have pet hedgehogs. I've had them since the late 1990s. 1999 was when I got my first one. And believe it or not, they do have hedgehog shows. And I
learned something today.
Yes, I have ribbons. Several of them. So I've had almost one that was a grand champion, 1 point away. And so sadly, I didn't get that for her, but that's okay. And I went to a hedgehog show down in Illinois, and there was an animal communicator there. And I thought, well, I've never done anything like this before. So I went over, paid my few dollars, and actually had her connect with several of my hedgehogs, even the ones that weren't there with me. I had 2 with me at that time, and there were probably 3 more at home. So she was just nailing their personalities, little quirks, and little nuances and behaviors that they had, and giving me ideas on how to help them. And I was hooked from then on. This animal communicator named Carol Schultz actually came up to my area and taught a basic introduction to animal communicator class. And I took it. And that was in February of 2003, and I've been going ever since.
Wow.
I finished up my certification probably in late 2004. And
wow.
Yeah, so I've been doing animal communication ever since then.
And
Sorry.
No, please. So you develop kind of like a psychic link with the animals?
Yeah, it's what I call a telepathic communication. Usually I ask for a picture of the face so you can see the face. Native Americans talk about how the eyes are the seat of the soul. And honestly, I think that is how I make my connection. It's a heart-to-heart connection through, that visual with the eyes of a picture or a living animal. I've worked with animals over in New Zealand, Australia, the UK, Canada, all over. Not in person, and this is all by phone.
Wow.
This is way before Zoom, way before
yes
Skype, that kind of thing. So it's been that long since I started out. Been doing mediumship way before that, probably in my late 40s. So I am a psychic medium, animal communicator.
Okay. Do you find a great deal of difference between the kind of messages you receive from, as a medium? I assume we're talking about humans that are no longer in this world.
Yes.
And the kind of thing that you receive from the animals.
Well, you can also connect up with the deceased animal without any problems as well.
Oh.
There might be a little bit of an energy shift but I don't even notice it.
Hmm.
I can go from reading a human and an animal in the same reading.
I see.
I just can't tell the nuance of difference, although there is a vibrational frequency slight difference in it. I think the animals are higher than us humans, actually. But I've never really thought about it too hard. I just do it naturally.
Sure. And this was the psychic mediumship. Was that something, do you feel you were born with, or something that you cultivated, or both?
Well, let me put it this way. As a child, I remember telling my parents that I was seeing orbs, and I thought I was floating around with the orbs in the backyard and in the neighbor's backyard. And of course, my parents both looked at me like deer. And I remember waking up during the middle of the night and seeing my grandmother sitting on the foot of my bed. Now, I did not know it was my grandmother until many years later when I actually saw a picture of her.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So it wasn't that you had a memory of her and then saw that. You saw an unknown person who turned out to be your grandmother.
Exactly. And
wow.
I mean, she had passed away 12 years prior to my birth.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So that was kind of an interesting aha moment for me.
I bet.
Do you believe this runs in my family line? My daughter is also intuitive.
I see.
She does do readings and etc. as well. And not so much the animal communication thing, but she does do readings and is intuitive. I do believe my mother and my grandmother were, and I do find that my dad's line, even though I never met any of them, they probably were as well.
Wow. I have heard of that, there being a genetic component to having some of these gifts, and that it kind of following a family tree. I mean, I've heard that repeatedly from a number of people. That certainly seems to be a thing, that seems to be an experience that people have.
The thing with me though is my parents, like I said, they were just deer, that look of deer in the headlights. Told them about grandma, and I told them about the orbs.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of got shut down until I was probably in my late 40s. Say that I didn't have little things happening that kind of, made me go, wow, okay. I've always had an interest in hauntings, paranormal, and that kind of thing. Enjoyed, that type of programming, reading about it, etc. Not stuff that scares you. It's the kind
the more interesting, just kind of, yes, I think learning. I know what you're talking about. Yes, exactly.
The learning.
Wow. Would you say, and we're just speculating here, but would you say that animals have souls in the same way that humans do?
Let's put it this way. People underestimate how intelligent our animal friends really are. Mm-hmm. They're so noble, so selfless, and they're so in the now, whereas so many people are just so scattered and trying to live life the best they can. But animals live in the moment. They are so wise, so smart, so intelligent, so selfless. For example, I have found through my years that they will actually mimic and take on your illnesses and your quirks, like anxiety, or they will mirror a disorder like kidney or bladder problems, or even possibly cancer in the same location as their caregiver.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot to take in. They sort of sympathetically suffer with what their, for lack of, their human has.
Yeah, they're doing
Wow.
a mirroring of their caregiver.
Wow.
So, unless that caregiver puts two and two together, the animal's getting sick because it's trying to take away some of the human's pain, trying to
Wow.
absorb some of that energy. But there's, unless you're dealing with a horse or a bigger animal, it can't take that on and dissipate it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes.
I've seen so many dogs and cats and etc. that come along with a disorder or a disease exactly like they're humans. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, it's interesting stuff.
That
And
is, that is really, I have literally never heard of that before. The
yeah,
vicarious suffering of an animal to try to help the human. That's quite profound. Um, I know that in tests and things, they found that, as you say, they're far more intelligent than we often give them credit for. And that even the so-called lesser animals like rats, um, in studies have been willing to sacrifice themselves for other rats and have shown a higher level of consciousness than you would expect from something that we often denigrate because of the size of their brain or what have you. But the size of the brain is not the size of the soul, you might say.
yes, I mean, and if you believe in things such as reincarnation, I have
Absolutely.
worked with clients that were in Egypt, and their pet cat, who presently was with them again, was a temple cat, and they were a temple worker in Egypt,
Wow.
bringing cats in that.
That
So,
is fascinating.
yeah, it's kind of mind blowing when you think about it.
Yes, the cat has followed them through life cycles. I don't
And
discount such things at all, though.
and we
Uh,
can actually ourselves live experiences in my belief system that we have been an animal as well. Just
I would believe that. Yes, that. Well, I think that is what the Hindus believe. That, I mean, it's very, a, a snapshot of one thing they believe, but yes, that people have all lived as other species, and may return to that. That we're not always humans. That we go through different cycles, and that they do too. Um, that is really interesting.
yes, it's it is interesting work. It is giving the animals, the ability and honoring their sentinel beingness, I guess you could say. Um, I mean, there is no such thing, I believe, as any, the energy of food. Everything has energy.
Mhm.
So animals definitely have an energy, what a soul, whatever you want to call it, that continues on. I also was well, I guess you could kind of call me an evidential medium because I did go to a spiritualist church for a number of years.
I see.
And I was allowed to do readings connecting with passed over folks at that church during the services. That's part of spiritualism. So I've done many things, have many tools. I'm trained in 5 different healing modalities.
Oh, wow.
Um, just to name a couple, theta healing is the one I use mainly. Um,
And what is that? Would you
you're
elaborate?
going into your theta brainwaves and connecting energetically to do a healing on an animal, a trauma release. Um, it's a type of healing energetically. It's like Reiki.
Okay,
And I am also an animal Reiki and a human animal Reiki master.
I see.
Do Native American shamanism
Oh,
as well.
wow.
And I have done property clearings in the back and worked with some paranormal groups. So I have
Wow.
a little toolbox that I go in.
Yes, it sounds like it. That is really interesting. Um, If somebody comes to you and says that they want to have you communicate with their dog, let's say, what happens? Like how does that usually take place?
Okay. Usually I will either ask them to send me a picture. It can be through email. I've actually worked events where they just show me a picture on a cell phone. As soon as you look at that cell phone picture, you can make that automatic connection. You can actually, do it just having them in the room as well. But most places where I do my events and so on, you can't have an animal in the building. So it's mostly from pictures.
Sure.
And it's making that connection. A lot of people don't realize this, but I believe with animals as well as people, that all your history is in your auric field. That's that energy system that's around your body. It's multi-layered, and your past, present, and even your future is held in that auric field.
Wow.
It does not, the future, the only difference is it's variable. It's not in stone. You can make a choice to change it, to shift it, to move forward in a different way. It's about choices and change. So when you do a futuristic reading, it's a suggestion, I guess you could say, or something that's not in stone. It's variable. When you're doing a reading in person, it's a psychic reading with a dog or from that picture of that living animal. And I'm pretty sure it's kind of the same thing because you're tapping energetically, intuitively into their energy field. And it doesn't matter whether they're passed over or living, I've found. It always works. And some of the things that I get are just amazing. I can talk about this. There was a horse group that somebody I worked with by phone. They were from Michigan. I'd never met this person. It was a referral from another person from that horse group. And I started doing the reading. And I said, does this horse have a genetic disorder? And they said, yes. I said, is it an atrophy of the hindquarters? Yes. And this person started just crying because they've been trying to help this horse for 2 years. And so I made that connection for them to give them closure that what they did was the right thing for the animal. It gives the human closure to know that they did the right thing.
Yes. And I just have to comment that that's an incredibly specific thing that you wouldn't know, some other way. I mean, to diagnose that, at a distance is quite impressive,
Yeah. And the thing is, too, you're not supposed to do medical diagnosing when you do animal communication.
Not in a medical sense, just in a layman's terms, yes. But
that animal was passed over.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That animal was passed over at that time. Not to say that I can't pick up things and say, I can suggest this, go and have this area checked out. I'm feeling and sensing there's something there, but I cannot diagnose.
Oh, no.
But
you don't want to, nobody's going to have the impression that you're practicing veterinarian skills without a license. That's not what we're doing here. This is just
want to clarify.
Yes, and which is worth noting. But yes, you are communicating with them psychically and spiritually, but not practicing medicine. That's not it.
Yes. Yeah, that's not my job. Although I can pick up on things. There's another instance I can talk about. This is a dog. And mind you, this is all through email.
I see.
This is happening. This individual had a 2-year-old and a Rottweiler. The Rottweiler was starting to exhibit some quirky behavior. she had me tap into this dog energetically. And I did tell her, I think you should go to the veterinarian. There's an area behind the ear here. I'm seeing something there that you should have checked out, definitely. And basically, she went to the veterinarian and they found a tumor exactly where I said it was.
Wow. Wow.
So, yeah, I am kind of a medical intuitive. I do pick up things with people, even.
Mm-hmm.
Not certified as a medical intuitive.
No, but
but it's part of this.
That must be a very interesting skill set to have, that you probably have come across some very unusual experiences.
Yeah, you were talking about in your questionnaire about oddities, like
Yes.
okay, I have not run into Sasquatch or anything like that, but in my energy working with animals, I can give you an instance that was probably in the past 2 months. I had a client contact me because of some really strange erratic behavior, not erotic, sorry.
We do hear of both, but yes.
Yeah. But it was really acting off center. And what I was seeing is what I call kind of a hybrid. It's a cross between, it looked like the body of a gray alien on the back end, and the front looked like a weird wolf type creature.
Wow.
And they can attach to animals as well as people and cause really crazy behavior to occur.
Wow.
Oh, I had my Native American guides, and I worked to remove this entity from this dog. And the dog's behavior changes immediately. It's what these entities or these strange hybrid creatures are doing is they're trying to control and live an experience as an animal.
Wow.
Because they are not of this plane, they're causing that really erratic behavior to occur. And by extracting them, it changes the whole demeanor, behaviors, etc. of these animals. And that's not the first time I've had that. It has also happened with humans, where you do a shamanic extraction of something.
Some entity that has latched onto them and is influencing them. I'm reluctant to say possession, but certainly causing problems in their life and trying, well, is possession the right word?
Well, it's an attached entity, so it could be considered kind of that, I guess.
Yes. And where do these things come from?
I
mean, I don't, not to put you on the spot, I don't expect you to know, but
I had a conversation with another practitioner, friend of mine, about this, because we're seeing more of them. This individual actually extracted something that also looked humanoid, but had a chimpanzee head.
Wow.
So we're starting to see more strange things as time goes on. I was joking around with this friend saying, well, it almost feels like there's, it's like a sci-fi movie where there's a crack in the universe and these things are creeping in.
Things are coming through the veil, yes.
Yeah. So it's kind of crazy sci-fi, out of this world kind of, when you see that and you're doing your session for this animal. And mind you, all this is remote. I do property clearings, but I don't do them in person. I do them remotely.
Okay. How do you go about that?
I actually work with my shaman guides, and I watch them or meld with them, and as they do the work and clear a property.
And if I may, they are like spirit guides. They are,
yes, they're Native
okay.
American spirit guides.
Okay, okay. I'm just trying to clarify whether physical people are walking through the house or no. You're visiting, in a more like astral projection. That's probably kind of
Yes.
like how you're doing it. Okay, okay.
Yes, I mean it's like going through a property. You can actually energetically pick up on quirky things with a property. I've driven past buildings and went, oh my, that's haunted as all get out. And then I out later on, oh yeah, it was. It's a haunted property. And there are certain people that you just know energetically. It's like, wow, no, I can't be around this.
Someone who is living maybe an evil life, you might say, or
Well, they just are very, it's either the people don't realize this, but when you do drugs, when you do a lot of alcohol or abuse, you are leaving yourself open to entity attachment. A friend of mine actually said, yeah, if you were going around in a bar and you paid attention, you could probably pick up on those energies being there waiting for somebody to get inebriated to attach. I'm not saying that that's what happens all the time, but traumas can cause attachments. There's so many things that can leave you open and vulnerable. And this work can be challenging at times. There are people who end up with attachments and so on. And then you have to figure out how to get rid of it.
Yes, yes.
Follow you home.
Mm-hmm.
I actually did help with a very haunted property in Milwaukee. And my thermostat was turned all the way up. And this was after working with that property where the same thing was happening. So yes, I had to clear my apartment.
Oh, it came after you.
Yes, because we were trying to clear it for these people. And it was an effort. It wasn't just me. But so there's specific ways. And when you do it remotely, the best way I can describe it for me is they can't zone in on you as well and come back after you. And I won't go into a lot of details what I do, but that's
no, I don't expect you to, describe the procedure. But so you say your thermostat was turned up. You mean it was turned up without you turning it up?
Yes, exactly. Okay.
Wow. I thought you were going to say we had it turned up and it was cold, but
no. I was trying to figure out why I was getting very comfortable in my usually cool apartment. I went over and looked, and it was all the way to the highest mark that you could get.
Wow.
Yes.
Interesting.
That is probably the first time that happened to me in probably 20 years plus. And this property was probably one of the most haunted that I could ever imagine being connected with, trying to help.
Yes. When you say most haunted, is that because many bad things had happened there?
Oh, their doors were opening. Their keys would vanish. Their oven would be turned on up to 500. The thermostat in that property was also going up and down. The garage door would not stay shut. At one point the doors were open when they came home after they were locked, and their dogs were out running around.
That would be disturbing. Yes.
Yeah. So yes, crazy stuff. The those are just a few of my experiences.
Yes. And the entities causing that. Now, were they deceased human beings or were they something else? Or the leftover energy of people that had lived there? Or
well,
what would you say? Would you
person
tell
was
me?
also a hoarder.
Mm,
So there was a lot of clutter. And then there was also I believe, a relative that was an individual that got into that too. I mean, this isn't my case. I just helped with it.
sure.
So it was crazy. And the only thing I talked about, the one thing that struck me was my thermostat going up.
Yes, yes. That it's pretty close to home when it's happening in your house. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. But as far as animal communication, do you have any further questions around that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff there. Do you get a lot of animals that have passed on trying to contact their people and tell them that they're okay?
I have had clients who have wondered that. I don't have an animal just show up.
Okay.
I have had lost souls show up and actually need to be transitioned over. One of my first apartments I moved into, I'm sitting in the restroom and I'm seeing my shower curtain being like somebody's tapping their hand on it. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And then I tapped into it, and it turned out it was a 2-year-old child that had lived with her mother in the apartment.
Oh,
and
wow.
she wanted to find her way home to the light.
Mm-hmm.
So I transitioned her over. This happens staying in hotels. I like higher end ones because the lower end ones, boy, I could tell you stories about that. Yeah.
Some people never leave, or
Well, do you want to hear about a very interesting one?
yes, please.
Okay. This is in Illinois. I'm trying to remember if it was Lyndhurst at a Motel 6. I actually had people come into this room and say, can you smell vomit or urine? And they said, no. It took me about 24 hours to figure out that somebody had died in my room.
Mm.
I was the only one that could smell the vomit and the urine.
Wow.
I transitioned that person onto the light
Mhm.
and, did some healing work with them so they could transition. The smell went totally away.
Wow.
And I was the only one that could smell it.
Sometimes I would say that being psychically sensitive may not always be a plus because
No.
you're picking up things that everybody else is just blind to, and that I'm sure it has great pluses, but it's sometimes ignorance is bliss, and not picking this up might be okay too.
Yeah, I also had another instance where this is a seminary when I was doing some training for shamanic work. And we were staying at this seminary and taking our classes there. It was for some shamanic animal communication work. And in the middle of the night, I am getting rocked like something is pushing on my hips, rocking me. Now, and I went, I kind of woke up, went, what the heck was that? Turn around, go back to sleep. A few minutes later, it also happens again. And I'm like, oh my Lord. I even told the teacher about it. This is my animal communicator teacher.
Yes, yes.
Let me tell you, everybody else connected to that class was kind of freaking out after I told her. And, I just told this, I was trying this, whatever this energy was, and I'll tell you later on, I did end up crossing this energy. It was actually a seminary teacher from this Catholic seminary school who was stuck there and wanted to find his way home.
Oh,
And he
wow.
saw me and knew that I could do it. And I didn't do it until I went back there for another training class because I told him to leave me alone, and he did. But later on, in another room in the same building, he was standing in the corner of the room watching me all night. And then I had a conversation with him and asked, "What can I do for you?" He actually said, "I want to go and leave here. I've been trying to help seminary students for so many years. I think it's time I went home." So it's interesting that a Catholic priest would ask me to help him cross over.
Yes, yes, it is.
But after
That's
that, I didn't see him anymore. I felt his energy go home. So it was
wow.
nice. And that was also one of my animal communicating tracks for shamanic
Yes, you're
training.
there to do one thing and you end up having quite a different experience.
Yes. But with animals, I do work with traumas. I've worked with performance animals like dog agilities. There was a horse that in 2010 became the National Tennessee Walker Grand Champion. So you can do tweaking between, it's like an intermediary. I call myself kind of a mediator in a way. With living animals, it's like mediating, telling them what the human wants, and then the animal will tell what it wants. And you try to kind of come to a middle ground so that there's peace, they understand each other, and they move forward in a positive way. So that's kind of fun with the live.
yes, that sounds actually fascinating. That sounds great. Like I imagine, and is that kind of the bulk of your practice that people say I'm having a problem with my animal, and
Mhm.
can you help us resolve it? Can you get it through to him to stop doing this thing that I don't like, or
Yeah.
see why he's acting like this?
Well, what I find is really interesting is like Caesar Milan,
Yes,
about 99.9% of the time, it's the human. It's the problem, not the dog, not the cat, not whatever animal. It's human expectation upon an animal. And
yes.
do have some of their wildness in them yet.
I would, yes. Often we're expecting things, we're thinking through our own lens. We're thinking as humans, and we're not understanding that they have a whole different mindset, and that
Mhm.
they are not, and they have instincts that are not our instincts. That makes a lot of sense. That, yes, it does.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and there is also that free will factor of you can try to mediate and find a good solution to this. I do have individuals that I refer people to who are better equipped at trying to teach the human how to deal with certain situations. Because just like human beings, there are stubborn animals
Yes, I believe
and
that.
willful. I mean, it's just like, when your child throws a tantrum, it's no different. It's they're trying to get their needs met, and it may not be in a fashion that's appropriate.
Yes.
So you try to mediate with the whole situation between the animal and the caregiver and come up with a solution for them. It's interesting work, and I do that more with the living animals,
Yes. Yes.
humans. When an animal passes over suddenly, traumatically, there's a lot of guilt. I've had individuals who were talking about why is this animal doing this behavior? And I'm like, you're putting a human expectation on something. And there's also that free will choice. It's like somebody can offer you advice and they can refuse. There
Oh,
are
yes.
instances where I have totally, it's gotten to the end of the line. We tried everything we possibly can. And this has happened with rescue animals on many occasions for me. You tell them either you learn to adapt and try to conform and help yourself by working with this human being, or you're going to be euthanized.
Wow.
It has gotten to that point on a few occasions for me.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, some behaviors can be caused by inbreeding.
Mm.
Some behaviors can be caused by traumatic, births where they didn't get enough oxygen at birth. And it's just a brain situation that
I'm sure, yes.
it's
Have,
like a malfunction of your brain misfiring.
mm-hmm.
And I can pick up on that too, energetically. Tell whether it's a brain problem, whether it's something that can be worked with. There's a lot of trainers that believe you can train anything out. There's instances I don't agree.
Yes, I would find that very believable that, maybe most things, but not everything. No. Do you have, or have you had many encounters with wild animals, non-domestic?
Oddly enough, yes. I remember sitting in my backyard and all of these animals, wild rabbits, birds, etc., end up getting really extremely close. And they're not afraid. They know that you're not going to harm them. They're at peace. They're okay with your energy. They don't have that fear that they would with regular people, I guess you could say. And they'll just, wander around in the yard like, oh, nothing's going on. They're not there. Yeah. And I've had animals. I've done this where I've wanted to see a deer. And I actually do end up seeing, I live off of a conservatory right now. So there are a lot of animals and transitory birds in this conservatory, and the deer walk through it. So I will sit and meditate and see if I could just for fun call in a wild animal. And also wild animals shamanically will work with you in a spirit form. If you see a lot of hawks, there's a message in that. There's messengers. Eagles. Each bird animal has a different totem energy that you work with. There's something to learn with that. So if you start seeing a certain type of animal over and over again, Google what the totem animal meaning is for that. There's probably a lesson in it for you.
Huh, that is very interesting. Not to totally change subjects, but you had mentioned encountering things that were like gray aliens. Have you seen any connection between gray aliens and owls?
Wow. No, I can't say that I have.
Okay. I know some people who have had abduction experiences or interaction with what I'm going to put in quotes, aliens, wherever they may come from, also have strange memories of owls. And some people have suggested that those are screen memories, or that somehow the owls and the aliens are connected in some way. Go ahead.
Interesting. I've never thought of this. So you brought up something new. Yeah, owl also is a messenger and a wisdom carrier of intuition and spiritual realms. So That's kind of an interesting thing. I'm glad you brought that up. Something for me to think about and ponder.
Yes, yes. Um, just I know that a number. Well, I'll tell you, in my experiences, including doing this podcast, I've had a chance to talk to a number of people who are psychically sensitive and or do mediumship and or do some sort of practice that involves talking with beings that are not physically human beings right now.
Okay.
And all of them seem to have an affinity for animals.
Yeah.
Like they all have like three cats and up, it just seems to be a thing. And people I've known in my personal life, who, like, for example, I knew a couple of ladies who practice Wicca, and they all had like 12 pets. It was just kind of like, why is everybody who's into this seems to be have connections with
Well,
animals?
I would have to say that cats are, you always see at Halloween, the witch is familiar, the cat,
Yes, yes.
black cat thing. Cats do see between the veils much easier than a lot of animals. I will give them that. They are very intuitive, very psychic creatures. Um, and and I do know several people who do practice Wicca, and oddly enough, they also live around Holy Hill. Yeah.
That's an interesting place to be drawn to.
Well, a lot of people do not realize that, but Holy Hill was a Native American religious site. And then along came the Catholics and took it over, kind of.
And
So it's,
also made it a religious site for Catholicism. It's I and I'm from Wisconsin. I do not happen to be Catholic or like raised Catholic. I Could you remind me the significance of Holy Hill? Because it is a
yeah, it's a
it,
national basilica, actually.
okay, okay, yes.
And
Um,
yeah,
and before that, it was a Native American holy site.
yes.
And
And
it
a lot
also seems to
of that.
draw,
Know that.
no, I did not know that. And it also seems to draw people that might be spiritually sensitive in some other practice.
Exactly.
That
Yeah.
is a fascinating thing.
I mean, you go out there, it's very calming, very serene, very beautiful. I try to make a sabbatical in the fall, usually when the leaves are turning very much, beautiful. That's a great area to drive through.
Oh
Uh,
yes, it's beautiful. I have been through it. Yes.
yeah, and that basilica has been there for 100 years plus probably. And before that, it was Native American. And believe it or not, I did not know this about it being a Native American site until a Dead Files episode. There was a horse farm
Wow.
out near Holy Hill that the Dead Files Amy Allen was at. And I
Wow.
know a Wicca practitioner that met her and was part of that investigation. So
Wow.
yeah, I kind of get around a teeny bit pumping people.
Yes, that is interesting. Holy Hill, and correct me if I'm wrong, I might have my geography off a bit, but that's not that far from Bray Road, is it?
I know about Brave Road, and I'm not sure. I've I'm going to have to look that up too for myself because I know about Brave Road and how there's this strange creature. And I've seen a couple of TV program, who did investigations and such on that. But yeah, I'm not sure. But that would be interesting for me to see if I can figure out.
Yes, I'm almost certain that it's fairly close.
I know it's
Um,
out near Horicon, I think, isn't it?
I I again, I didn't know this was going to come up, or I would have done a little bit better research. But yes, I had the great opportunity, thanks to a friend of mine, two friends of mine, Stephen Schneider and Clay Van Diver, who took me along with them to do an investigation at Bray Road, and we did something that was kind of unique to me anyway. Clay had a recording that he had gotten it off of YouTube, but it was sourced, that it was alleged to be a howling of a werewolf from Scotland. And so we drove up and down Bray Road while he played it out the window on like a boombox. And
Wow.
yes, it was quite exciting at the time, let me tell you. We didn't see like any manifestations. We didn't see the beast or, anything that looked like an apparition. But he is psychically sensitive, and he said he got hit pretty hard, that it was there. It was there, even if it was not showing itself to us. And I was very impressed with that.
Yeah, I have I do have this interest in a lot of paranormal programming. I actually have a friend she has also a podcast.
Oh, really?
Can't remember the name of it, but she does paranormal stuff. And she was actually my mediumship certification person. But there's a paranormal conference in Wisconsin that's going to be, I think, up near Sheboygan somewhere.
Oh, really?
September. Yeah. Can forward that info to you if you want.
Oh, please.
Yeah. It's going to have several big names, like an individual from Ghost Hunters, Kindred Spirits, and Christina Bloom, my mentor, is going to be one of those people at that paranormal conference.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I do have interest in the paranormal. I've never gone on an investigation in person. I know people who do. I did live in a 120-year-old farmhouse that was haunted. I didn't talk about that one.
Oh, please, if you don't mind.
My ankles got touched when I was in bed. I was like, nope. I only lasted 6 months there.
It was that high a level of activity that you said I need to move.
Yeah, it was like Grand Central Station was going through my door, my living room.
Wow.
It was trying to reroute a portal that was in the middle of my living room. It was such a big portal, and it was crazy with activity. I mean, the person who lived upstairs from me actually there was the owner, the woman who her family built that proper house. And I would have conversations with her. She was cool. She was fine. But whatever grabbed my ankles was a male entity, and I was not thrilled.
I believe it, yes.
And when you're trying to sleep in bed, that's not cool.
No, it's not. When you say a portal, was it there, like it was pre-existing, or somebody opened it? Did you say?
Yeah, because it was portals. I actually lived in an apartment that had 5 portals in it. 3 of them were in my apartment.
Wow.
Yeah. And there are good ones and there are bad ones. There was one that was super bad in that apartment. There was one that would go from another apartment down the hallway, up and down the hallway, back and forth, and then back into that apartment. So yeah, I've had some crazy experiences. That was in Waukesha, in an apartment building that I lived in.
And would you say that was like always there, or was that caused by somebody practicing magic and not closing it back up?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Okay.
And,
Okay. Not finishing the ritual, not doing the banishings and the things that you're supposed to do to shut that down.
and the
I am
one that
told.
was in my bedroom was so bad. I cleaned it up a bit. I got it to move away into a certain corner, but I couldn't get it outside. I wanted to move it outside the building, but the best I could do was a quarter of my bedroom. And here's another odd factoid. I have a good friend who still lives in the complex.
Oh, wow.
Told me that the person who rented the apartment after me died of a drug overdose in that apartment.
Wow.
So I wonder
Wow.
if that portal from energy, them doing drugs, negative energy, if it just got going again and it did its job. Because
Wow.
also kind of sick in that apartment a lot too.
Wow.
So yeah.
Some very bad things coming through there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so not all of these portals or gateways are nice.
Oh,
And
nice. I'm sure not.
some of them you cannot get rid of. Or I know I've had a few where I did property clearings and I would move it to the back corner in the yard. I'd tell the person where it was. And after that, the activity and stuff in their house stopped because it wasn't Grand Central Station with stuff coming in.
Wow.
Mirrors can be portals and gateways as well. And I do not have any mirrors anywhere for that reason.
Is there an experience that's based on, or just other learning that you've had?
Let's put it this way. There are certain practices that use them in their magic.
Oh, yes.
And yes, it is intent. And you will call in energies to help or work with you. Good, bad, who knows? And, it's you got to know what you're doing with this stuff. Skyping with mirrors, you can see things in there. It's like, as a kid, that old Mary Worth stand in front of the mirror and say,
Oh, yes, yes.
that kind of thing. And I really don't like Ouija boards because people don't know how to open and close them, and you get stuff going in and out. If I believe in the book The Conjuring, they talk about Annabelle the doll.
Yes, yes.
And there was a spirit there that thought was a little girl. And it attached to the doll, and the doll started moving around. So yeah, you can. And I've actually had objects that I couldn't handle because they were so a negative connotation to it.
Wow. Well, I personally know people who do ritual magic who won't touch a Ouija board, which is
I don't like them.
That says something. That they'll do other stuff, but they won't. That's off limits. And
you do not know what is going to come through those things. And it may seem warm and fuzzy and friendly, and then after a while it gets out of hand. And I'm trying to remember, was it Annabelle where they had been messing with the Ouija board? My memory, I read so much stuff.
I'm not too familiar with the Warrens' whole
but
thing.
I am thinking that those girls have been messing with a Ouija board, but I'm not going to swear to that 100%.
No, I get you, but I know that's something to be avoided, as generally everybody's told me. Stay from that. Don't get involved with that particular object.
Yeah, unless you really know what you're doing, and then I wouldn't even recommend it that way.
Yes.
It's kind of spooky stuff. And I mean, the longer you do this, yes, the more you experience you have, the more you learn, the more you know. So, knowledge and experience are pretty good things and tools to have.
Yes.
And all of this stuff can apply to, attachments with these animals, with human things. I have also found that a lot of, like that site in Milwaukee I was talking about,
Yes.
that actually had something that went back to the Native Americans. And I can't explain why, but whenever the Native Americans do something, it sticks. And a lot of the time you can't make peace with it. And you might be able to, but I would say probably 99% of the time or more, there's no way. I mean, if you watch The Dead Files, and I'm a big fan of Amy Allen, if you watch that, there have been times where she talks about the Native American attachment to that land. And I have found that prior to her talking about that too, that actually, you know, is very, very true. It's just something that we, I don't know, as Caucasian white folks can't make peace with.
I mean, without getting terribly political, a lot of those things have never been acknowledged. A lot of the atrocities have never been acknowledged, and
Definitely.
certainly never been like repaired. Reparations have never been paid. So it's going to be really hard to make peace when we haven't made peace in the physical, political, mundane world.
Absolutely. And, people don't realize that, when if there's a spirit or a haunting, that energy was living at one time for the most part. Some of them can be alien.
I was going to get to that.
Yes.
but please go ahead.
Some of them can be aliens as well. But I'm trying to remember where I was going. I'm having
we're just talking about the difficulty of making peace with Native American spirits and energies, because those problems are still unresolved in regular society.
Yes. And I try to honor that. I remember what I was going to say. These people in spirit were living souls at one time. And their personality isn't going to change a whole lot. If you were a stinker and a meanie when you were alive, that kind of energy is going to carry over into being a spirit. So you try to honor them as humans, in an empathetic, understanding way. And try to offer them a healing, try to offer them, a lot of them don't know they're even gone.
That's something you've run across quite a bit.
Yeah, occasionally. And, it's just something you got to take case by case, situation by situation, and interact with it and try to figure it out and try to get, a closure piece, something to move on. There are instances where whatever's there, it just likes it there. And if you can live with it and, talk out loud to it and say, hey, you're waking me up in the middle of the night. I would appreciate that you wouldn't do that. And, we both got to share this space. You're welcome to stay, but we got to honor each other. And
I have had the experience of disappearing objects and then speaking out loud. Well, not that loud, because the rest of my family would think I was crazy, but speaking verbally in the third person that it would be really nice if that object was returned and that I'd really appreciate it. And Pam, there it was, in a place that I've looked at like 5 times. It wasn't there 10 seconds ago, and now it's there. And it was like, it's impossible to prove, but I know what happened, and that happened a number of times at a certain house we lived at. And it was very interesting.
Yeah, it's basically like, thank you for bringing it back, but I would appreciate it if you wouldn't do this again. Kind of, yeah, I get it.
It was very strange at the time. And there was
Yeah.
definitely if I said this, and I always made sure to say thank you afterward, it
Mhm.
would be returned.
Yep.
And we did eventually move, and I never learned was that somebody trying to communicate what that was, but it was something. Something happened there,
Oh, yeah. It was obviously having a little fun with you.
And that's what it seemed to be. It never did anything malicious in the
Yeah.
sense that it could have hurt us. No, but it was most often the pepper shaker would be gone. And I know how trivial that sounds, but when you're trying to cook something and you're looking for the pepper, and I know I looked over there and it was not there, and now it is there. It was that kind of thing, which is
Yeah, I have
what
had
it
that
is.
maybe a couple of times, and it usually ends up being some kind of a relative pulling a prank on you,
Hmm.
or a friend that was kind of a prankster in life.
Uh-huh.
And usually a medium friend can tap into it and go, yeah, that's what's going on, kind of thing. Um,
And I actually received a message very similar to that at the Spiritualist Church, saying that, yeah, sometimes I move things around on you, but I'm just playing around.
yeah.
It was pretty nice.
Yeah, that is hilariously funny when that happens. Well, maybe at the time, not thinking that.
At the time, I was a
But
little uneasy with that. Yes.
yeah, I mean, if it's not an everyday occurrence, it's something
No.
out of the ordinary.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Doing this as long as I have, I just kind of go, well, that was interesting. My light turned off. And then I go, hello, I know you're here. You can turn it back on. It comes back on.
Wow.
It's usually my dad. Thank you, Dad. That kind of thing.
That is interesting. That is fascinating.
But yeah, I've
You
had a lot of experiences. I could probably go on for quite a bit.
well, if we could, have you ever had anything to do with UFOs?
I have not actually seen any. I'm happy to report I am not an abductee
Okay.
because I do know somebody who is.
Oh, I have a friend who has suffered with that over the years. Yes.
Oh my, yeah, I mean, being shown red marks, little bleeding trickly spots, and them saying, what can I do to get this to stop? And it's like, I don't know, some individuals might have contracted with that for that. Hard to believe that anybody would.
You mean in a reincarnation
Agreed.
sense?
Yes. They may have agreed to it
Mm-hmm.
some level. I actually do work with Palladian guides.
Oh, see.
So yeah, I have a very big connection to the Palladians and to I'm always drawn. I love watching Orion go, that constellation, go through the sky at night. And I go, yep, that belt there, that's my planet.
No, that's exactly what I was talking about. That
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so you have a rapport with extraterrestrial beings psychically.
Yeah. And they do work with me doing healing and such.
Wow. Wow.
I don't talk about that one that much.
Yes, that's a fascinating thing. Please.
I don't know. Well, I'm gonna say it. Almost everybody I know has some kind of a Palladian connection, including my pet hedgehogs who help me work with animals. Yes, I guess in a way you could call it a familiar who works with you, because when I have a situation with an animal that is not working out real well, I will send in one of my hedgehogs, it's either in spirit or a living one, to go in telepathically and talk to this animal and soften them up to understand I'm trying to help them.
Wow.
It usually works. it's really wonderful having an animal companion work with you and help you as an animal communicator.
Oh, I bet. Wow.
And I presently only have one hedgehog. I have another one that's in spirit that used to channel me things, and I'm working on a little book called Weebly Says Messages from the Divine Hedgehog.
Wow. I must have a copy when you have it done.
Yeah, I'm working on trying to find a way to publish it now. So I have a prototype. I'm getting there. It will be a bit, but it's little inspirational quotation things. And yeah, I have to admit, a lot of them were directed at me.
Of course, yes. You're its closest companion.
And this hedgehog just passed away last June. But she still works with me. I have several of my past over hedgehogs that work with me. I've had 14 of them since 1999. And if you look around my apartment, there's hedgehog stuff everywhere. In fact, there's a blanket here with a hedgehog on it. So yeah, I mean, hedgehogs, they help me. They're my little friends, and I talk to Weebly and I talk to my hedgehog wizard that I still have, and it's just like me talking to you.
Oh,
It's in my mind though, in my head. I hear it telepathically, and that's pretty much when you work as an animal communicator. You are getting senses. I've had instances where I can actually smell the earth like a dog smelling the earth. I can feel the dampness with their paws. I can hear and sense things that they're sensing. So, and they show me what's around them. Like, I don't like doing lost animals. It's they usually don't turn out.
and it would be very painful to have an empathetic connection with something that's
Yeah.
suffering. Yes, yes.
Yes. And if you can keep your animal inside, please do your cats, especially because I did have one recently where a fox ate it.
Wow.
Owls, hawks will eat them as well. People do not. Coyotes. Waukesha County has the biggest coyote population in the whole state, believe it or not.
Wow. I actually can believe that because I used to live in Wauwatosa, which is very nearby. And we saw a coyote, and he was a big one in the middle of the day, and he had no fear whatsoever.
Yeah.
That is nothing to be taken lightly.
Yeah, they've become quite good at being urbanites.
Yes, yes.
And adapting. I mean, it's so yeah, it's like looking at a lost animal poster and go, oh Lord, no, it's one of those that got ate.
Mm-hmm.
That, which is sad. It breaks my heart. And
oh yeah.
And I occasionally will do them for people who are regular clients. I just had one recently.
Oh yes.
Yeah, a little stinker, bless his heart. He actually did end up coming home after 2 days on a sabbatical.
That's good. I imagine it's pretty satisfying when it works out. It's just it doesn't always work out. Yes.
And this is one of my regular clients, so a lot of us do not like doing them, and if we do, we charge a crazy price for it because it's more than usually 1 day.
Oh wow.
And sometimes it can be inconclusive. It's hard to believe this, but animals can actually choose to run away for a reason because they're not happy with the home situation. And there have been instances where an autistic kid has a dog show up on the doorstep. That dog found that child to be of assistance and bring them out. So animals do come with a job. They're service dogs. there's companion animals. You get the jokester, the goofy animal that just makes you laugh because they're bringing you joy. Then you have ones like I have that are my friends and companions and work with me. Animals all do come with agendas, just like us, what we want to experience. It's like Sylvia Browne said, I can't remember which one of her books this is in, but she talks about this blueprint that you create on the other side before you reincarnate. And you have all your exit points, things that you want to experience, good, bad, And when people have the bad things happen to them, and this is something that it's been a challenge for me over the years. Why does this bad stuff have to happen? Well, you have to change your perspective and go, what am I going to learn from this? What was the lesson from it? It's not that you're being punished. There is something you need to learn out of this, especially if stuff keeps happening over and over and over again. And it's the same thing.
Only that seems like a very wise perspective.
Yeah. And it's taken me quite a few years to get to that point. It really, really and truly has.
Oh, it's not, the most natural thing you would think of. We mostly try to avoid bad things happening, and that's probably a better way to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that you were being punished by God, creator, or whatever your higher power is. It's something that you probably chose to experience, to learn, to overcome, to better yourself, so to speak. And work through it. So if you believe in reincarnation or karma, you don't have to do that again.
Yes. Do you have past life memories that you would care to mention?
Oh, I'm working on another book called Journey of Souls, The Irish Witch.
Ah, really?
And yes, it's reincarnation ancestors, including myself.
Wow.
So,
and of course, I don't want to take the spoilers from your book, but The Irish Witch kind of speaks for itself, I assume.
Well, actually, healers, herbalists, midwives, all of those.
Oh, yes.
Kind of a witch.
The cunning woman, and sometimes the cunning man. Yes. Yes. Yeah. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, and I thought, well, there could be a series of books of this because through my meditation and connecting with my ancestor, I actually, that lifetime, there are other people that I am connected with that were in that lifetime back then.
That is something that I have read of a number of times, that we kind of have, you might say, a crew of people that we go through reincarnation over and over with. Yes. Evolution. Yes. And some of those would be people that we see in different roles in different lives.
Exactly.
And some may be animals.
Just to put a highlight on that.
Yes.
There is a hedgehog named Willow that Weebly is the reincarnated hedgehog.
Oh, wow. That is fascinating.
Way back to me in this lifetime. I didn't even know it. When I went to pick her out from a breeder in Racine, when I went to pick her up or pick her out, I knew what I was looking for. It was a hedgehog with very dark, unusual markings. And a friend of mine picked her up out of a bin and said, "Is this the one that you're looking for?" And I went, "Oh my God, yeah." And wow. So she lived with me for almost, well, it was probably 4 months short of 5 years. They have a short lifespan. 5 years, you're lucky. So I didn't figure this out until I was doing past life healing and trauma release. And this is how this story came out. And I'm starting to rework it and reorganize it. And eventually, yes, probably have it published. And I've thought about doing series of them called Journey of Souls or something to that effect.
That sounds fascinating.
So yeah, and it's like J.K. Rowling. Honestly, I think all that Harry Potter stuff was channeled to her.
I have never heard that before, but once you said it, it does tend to make some sense.
Yes, I mean,
Someone wanting to re-enchant the world, um,
yes,
reaching out to, well, the way that some people have said that H.P. Lovecraft's material, most of which came
yeah,
from his dreams,
yes,
was sent to him to communicate a message to the world, whether he knew it or not. And
exactly.
that's fascinating. And considering the nature of what she's saying and the phenomenal popularity that it's had, that makes a lot of sense. That is very
Yes,
interesting. And
yes,
coming from the British Isles and having a rather like British approach to it, that would make that ancestors, spirits connected to ancestors, who knows, somebody was trying to get that message into the world and seemed to
yeah.
get it there.
And
Wow.
I actually do know somebody who does do ancestry research with intuitive information that she gets.
Oh,
It all pans out, which
wow.
my mind. I took a mini class with her. Her name's Siobhan Carlson. And sorry, Siobhan, I should have asked. But she's also a reverend for the Spiritualist Church.
Okay.
So I think she only does online. But she does do ancestry research intuitively like that. Hits names, hits locations, all of that. And it just blew my mind away.
Yeah, that could be really a source of a ton of information. That is fascinating.
And who would think of that, right?
I would not have thought of that. That yes, they're reaching out, they're trying to tell us something quite frequently.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm hoping now that Siobhan doesn't get slammed because I should have maybe asked first on that one.
I really don't have enough listeners that
Okay, good to know.
I'm still, getting this thing going fully.
Yeah, but
But
you probably will have an archive.
oh yes, I definitely do. At my
Yeah.
website, and certainly this will be there, but I have not had any negative I have complaints on the YouTube channel, but I give that the attention it deserves. But I haven't had anybody like really like go after a guest or anything. No, that's never happened.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, then we'd like to keep it that way. Yes, yes.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting journey for the last 25, 30 years. Just deciding at the age of 47, I'm going to read everything about hauntings and mediumship and psychicness, which I did for a year before I started doing anything. And the odd thing is, believe it or not, I used to go into MSN chat rooms. And this is before they got voice. Well, MSN no longer has them because they became too problematic.
Mm-hmm.
But there was that crawl line going by 100 miles an hour. And these were all psychic chat rooms. I learned a wealth of information in those places. And then a little later on, I'd lost contact with him, but I used to do readings on a internet radio station in Scotland called Radio RTBT. A friend of mine named William Gordon had that. I think he does still stream music, but I don't think he has live guests like he used to anymore. because like I said, I've lost contact with him over the years. But they would let me do readings live in their room, animal or human.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I did that about maybe 4 times or so. But I kept in contact with him, was a friend, and they'd contact me about stuff over in Scotland that was going on haunting wise and etc. and ask me, can you check into this? So I have a broad spectrum of experience, I guess, and a toolbox, as I call it, for when you work,
Yes.
either with animals or human beings or properties. So
Indeed.
it's been an interesting journey.
I believe that. I have an off the wall question that I did not prepare in advance, but and if you've never heard of this, don't worry. Almost nobody's ever heard of it. But when I say Jeff the Mongoose, does that ring a bell?
No.
Okay, there was about 100 years ago in an island that's part of the UK. There was a family. It was quite rural, and there was a family living there, and they began to hear all three members. I think it was just husband, wife, and one child began to be communicated with by a self-described talking mongoose that you know, was they called himself Jeff the Mongoose, and it was an ongoing mystery. And the equivalent of like ghost hunters in that era came out and tried to test and tried to trick them and tried to see if it was ventriloquism or what it was, and it was never really solved. And nobody ever, to the best of my knowledge, nobody ever came forward and said, yeah, I faked that, I just did it. And nobody ever said that. And the being described itself as a mongoose, but with human hands. And it was very mysterious, and it didn't seem to be like it like spoke English, and it was not communicating psychically, it was communicating like audibly. And nobody ever really was clear of what is this. And it's been an ongoing interesting mystery for quite some time.
Something else for me to Google.
Oh, I would Google it, and it's Jeff with a G, like Geoff.
Ah, very British.
Yes, yes.
Like
Geoff the Mongoose. Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay.
It was just an interesting, kind of somewhat
That is so
animal,
funny.
paranormal creature.
Wow, that is crazy.
It was a very wild and, to the best of my knowledge, unexplained story to this day. Yes.
Wow. Well, it's a big world with a lot going on.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah, I always wanted to go to the UK and visit this Billy, and his friend had a paranormal group as well. And actually ran some events over there. On like around Halloween, they would do these events in like castles and stuff.
Oh,
and
wow.
Like I said, I've lost track of them. I never just ended up ever getting over there and visiting, and it's so multi-layered and old.
Oh, yes.
And I was wondering if being as empathic as I am, if that would be problematic or not. I'm thinking maybe not. Maybe.
It's tough to say.
You don't know until you go.
And precisely, yes. I think maybe you'd end up seeing a lot of things, and maybe it'd be just like here. Who knows?
Yeah, but I've had other mediums say, "Oh yeah, you go over there, and it's just like stuff's coming at you all the time."
Wow.
And I do know mediums that are open 24/7. And I don't know if I just naturally tune it out after a period. It's like, yeah, I'm done now. Bye. Or not, because very seldom, unless, I mean, I've been warned about, watch your back about this person. Don't go that way. Yeah, don't go to this situation because it's not good for you. I had intuitive hits like that about people, situations, places. But it's not where I'm walking around going, oh, that person just had a fight with their boyfriend. Or, I'm not open 24/7 for that kind of stuff.
Which would
I
that's
will.
probably a good thing,
Oh yeah, I know people who just start out, especially kids that are gifted. They're open and they're just experiencing all of this. I mean, I was experiencing those things as a kid and telling my parents and got more or less shut down.
Mm.
So, there are certain, like I believe Amy Allen was doing this since she was little. And, seeing stuff from an early age. Whereas I can't swear that happened. And I think I might have been somewhere between 4 and 5 when I saw my grandmother. And possibly that orbs thing was probably that same year, maybe.
Mm.
And I mean, I remember I was floating around with the orbs.
Wow. That is an incredible memory to have.
Yeah.
I think we're kind of running a little short on time.
Mhm.
I really appreciate you having been a guest here, Lois.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. I wonder, is there anything you'd like to tell our listeners?
Yes, I will be offering an introduction to animal communication class coming up. I believe you interviewed Mary Engelberg a few
I did.
weeks
I
ago
did.
or something like that. It's
I
going to be at her property
Oh, wow.
there, and you can purchase tickets through Everbright.
Okay. That sounds like a very interesting event.
Yeah, it's just a very rudimentary, basic class, just the enough to get you out there and make a connection with your own pet, hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah. And hopefully I will get my Weebly Says messages from the Divine Hedgehog printed and published very soon. And I don't have any events lined up because of COVID. I kind of stepped back from doing them. I will be at Dare to Be Aware on April 15th of 2023 at the church that I belong to. It's a Science of the Mind church, which is also interesting.
I
And
bet.
pretty much everybody there is an intuitive as well, and they're great manifestors. So that's a whole another thing about learning how to manifest positivity in your life, positive health, healing, stability, better relationships. It's been a wonderful experience the year that I've been there. It's Spiritual Living of Greater Milwaukee, their booth at Dare to Be Aware, coming up April 15th. I will be there for a period of time.
Well, thank you very much. This has been a fascinating discussion. Once again, I'd like to thank you for coming on. Folks, this has been The Weird Part. I am your host, Vincent Treewell. Lois Reetz has
No, it's Lois.
Lois. I've only been talking for an hour and a half, and I managed to muffle the name at the last second. Lois Reetz, Lois Reetz, has been our very special guest, and I thank you for coming on. And listeners, to all, a good night.